Welcome back. Joining me for a look at the equity space is Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore. Viv, thanks so much for joining us today. Now, it's the last day of trade for the month, and besides the past few days, markets have been faring pretty well in May, and I guess then traders didn't really sell in May and go away, right?
No, definitely not. I mean, if you look at the S&P 500, it's done about 4% for the month. It kind of did most of the growth at the start of the month, but it hasn't really come down too dramatically near the end. Despite the fact that we have seen, a number of indicators out there that would indicate maybe economic weakness, the market right now may be looking at some of these things as bad news is good news, and not really being that concerned about it.
I want us to zoom in on the local bourse. Now, we've seen the JSE tank. It did somewhat recover today, but the outcome of the national election still proving to be a risk to our local markets.
Most certainly. I mean, I think the way to think about this is it's a case of the devil you know. The ANC may have had issues. Market may not have been too positive about the ANC for a number of different reasons, but they knew what it was. They knew how it behaved. They knew what to expect and what not to expect. And for 30 years, we've had a certain level of stability. And now we're going to have a very different kind of government, a government that either going to be the ANC plus the DA, EFF, or MK, because it needs one of those big parties to step in and be, a partner. It can't just make it up with maybe a couple, 2-3% parties. It needs, one large party to be almost an anchor to make it up to the 50%, and hopefully get above that, with a couple smaller coalition partners as well. If they don't do that, what happens? You get a very weak government that can be held ransom by even a very minor party with just 1 or 2% of the total vote, and that is a very unstable situation to be working with in South Africa, unfortunately.
Is that the risk that's also weighing on the Rand? I mean, I think the last time I checked, it was at 1885 from about 1850 yesterday. Or are we also just seeing some global factors also just weighing on the local currency?
Yeah, I'm thinking about 1870, 1865 at the moment. It's kind of around that range. I do think that the Rand is weakening because of the fall in the ANC's fortunes. I mean, if you look back into the polling over the last couple of months, it was quite clear. When the ANC was rising in the polls, the Rand got stronger. When the ANC fell in the polls, the Rand got weaker. These numbers actually that we had come out right now, and obviously we don't really know the full numbers yet, but it seems to be around 42-43% for the ANC. But these are numbers that are significantly lower than the last polling was indicating. The last polling I was seeing indicating like a week or so ago was indicating the ANC was going to get above 45%, and there was even some rumors that because of the trend, they were getting towards 50. And I think the Rand was stronger because of that kind of belief that they were going to get closer to 50. The fact that they've come in worse than the last polling has indicated, I think, is one of the reasons we saw the weakness come through right now.
So we wait with bated breath for those results coming out soon, and hopefully, we'll see less volatility once those results come out. Now, let's move over to some company news. This came out with annual results. Revenue up 11%. That, however, did not filter through to its bottom line. Bottom line coming under pressure with HEPS down 1.6%. Viv, what have you made of those numbers? I mean, considering that, the store's also dealing with a downbeat or a cash-strapped consumer at the moment.
Yeah, Discount has been doing really well over the last year. So you understand, this stock is up almost 50% over the last year. So the market, even though the numbers don't look that bad, the market has been expecting quite a bit of positivity from this game over a little while. So yeah, this is a stock that has done really well in the last, like I said, period of time. If I look at just the way, going back to what we talked about before about the situation with regards to the election. If you saw yesterday, and this kind of slightly reversed today, but there was a pretty big fall in everything related to SA Inc. I think that's something to be looked at as well. Is that the market right now is thinking, what is exactly the situation going forward for the overall economy? That could be something that's feeding through here. Well, just game itself, the numbers look reasonably okay, but like I said, the stock has been up 50% virtually in the last year, and therefore unless numbers are great, the price is not going to be doing too much positively.
Let's move over to the mining sector. Anglo American making headlines yet again. Now, in an interview, company CEO Duncan Wanbond told Business Live in an interview that it plans a secondary listing of Amplats in London. This, of course, in an effort to reduce capital outflows from South Africa when it unbundles that stake. What have you made of this move in particular?
I kind of recall, back in the day when we had the AB InBev, deal, and there was like certain kind of moves to like kind of get your house in order for a possible merger. We had like certain parts of the company being like pushed off to allow the merger to go through more quickly. I do think that the fact that BHP was saying no Schultz Amplatz, no Kumba, the fact that the price offer may not have been exactly what the Anglo's board wanted, but does indicate interest, and I think Glencore is also looking at it. It does kind of make sense that if in some future deal was to be made, this kind of like kind of a certain unbundling is probably a positive thing for them. I do think down the line we probably are going to see something happen in regards to this. Maybe not now, but maybe a year or so down the line.
And before I get to your stock pick, Viv, they're a small player but an interesting one. Lewis out with results as well. We're seeing consumers turn to credit in tough time. I think credit sales were up over 15%, while cash sales fell over 12%. Interestingly, credit sales now account for about 66% of Lewis's total sales. Is this a stock you follow, Viv?
Well, not too carefully, but I mean, look, it is a company that's basically done reasonably well. We've seen a nice little improvement over the last year or so to the share price. Dividends up 21%. The fact that we're moving towards more credit kind of makes sense in the current economy. The South African consumer has basically been stagnant to falling over the last decade or so in terms of incomes. I mean, one of the terrifying things I saw around the election time was the fact that if you look at where South Africa was back 30 years ago, we were like more than double the emerging market average in terms of economic growth, or per capita GDP rather, more than double. Right now, we're just falling below the average. So in the last 30 years, we went from being twice as good to being less good than places that you think as being economic basket cases like Algeria and Egypt have dramatically outperformed us the last 10 years, and the consumer has been affected by that. And so if you want to keep on buying stuff, you have to be borrowing the money, unfortunately. That's just the nature of the beast at the moment.
Okay, yeah. And Viv, before I let you go, what is your stock pick?
It's Novartis. The reason I'm picking Novartis is the share price is slightly up, but one thing I think is very positive for them is that they have a deal with a company called Isomorphic Labs, which is an offshoot from Google/Alphabet. They have some AI technology around pharmaceutical that I think may bear a lot of fruit going forward. We've seen already with like the COVID vaccines that stuff that we thought was science fiction a couple of years ago is actually in the play right now. And we could be seeing quite a number of these breakthrough drugs, something like the GLP stuff that's come out, things like Mounjaro or Ozempic, that has caused huge profitability for things like Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. And I think that being a partner with Google in this thing could give massive upside to Novartis going forward.
All right, Viv, thanks so much for your time and those insights. That was Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore.